Emily, where are you now? Why aren't you answering the phone?
As soon as the call connected, my mother shouted angrily, "I'm at home now." I answered calmly, undisturbed by my mother's anger.
Why did you leave me behind? Don't you care about your parent?
My mother was clearly agitated. I sighed softly before expressing my feelings. "I can't live with you anymore, Mom. That's why I've decided to move out." My statement surprised her. She was clearly taken aback.
What are you talking about all of a sudden? Do you hate me now? I won't be able to manage if you're gone. What should I do when I return from the hospital? I need care, you know.
By this time, I already knew the whole truth about my mother. I am Emily, 36 years old. I work for a major corporation in the city. A few years ago, for some reason, working remotely became my main way of working. My parents divorced when I was young, and my mother raised me on her own. I don't remember what my father looked like at all, but I heard that he was the same age as my mother. According to my mom, my father was quite the womanizer. He treated her like a maid and was always complaining. Eventually, he left to be with his mistress. What a terrible man. Now it seems impossible to get in touch with him. My mother threw away any photos of my father a long time ago. After the divorce, my mother got custody. It seems there was no particular conflict with my father. She took me and raised me with care. I am filled with gratitude towards her. Thanks to her, I was able to graduate from college and get a job at a major company. I grew up receiving a lot of love from my mother, so I never felt lonely. Besides, I have no desire to meet my father now. My mother has always said about him,
That man was really no good. So think of it as if you never had a father from the start. You are my pride and joy, raised with all my care.
When I heard about how my father treated my mother and his affairs with other women, I was filled with anger towards him, feeling so sorry for my mother. I hardly ever felt envious seeing my friends' parents together at school events like Parents' Days or Sports Days. I lived as if my father didn't exist, just as my mother had said. Then, as I started working and living on my own, I led a busy yet fulfilling life. Around the time I turned 26, something happened. My mother had an accident and was forced to live in a wheelchair. It was an unfortunate accident that severely injured her legs, rendering her unable to walk. She had to quit her job, which was a great frustration for her. My mother, who was always cheerful, became gloomy after the accident. It took away her freedom and her smile. Gradually, she became mentally distressed, had to visit the hospital more often, and lost a lot of weight. Then she asked me to come back home to take care of her, so I returned to my family house for her care. She probably felt very vulnerable mentally. I took a week off work to devote myself to caregiving. Initially, I thought I would return to work once she got better. Since I came back home, my mom has been smiling more often. I felt relieved that I could go back to work, but when I told my mom about it, she wouldn't allow me to return to work.
Are you going back to work, Emily? Don't leave me here alone again, will you? That would be cruel.
While saying this, my mother clung to me. Mom, if that's the case, I'll talk to my company, so just wait. I was perplexed by my mother's plea, but I couldn't just abandon the woman who had raised me single-handedly. Moreover, I could see her mobility and mental strength declining. I talked to my company and decided to switch to working remotely with shorter hours until my mother's condition improved. However, afterward, my mom became extremely uncomfortable with me being alone and would constantly hover around me even when I was working in my room. During online meetings via the laptop camera, I had to ask her to leave the room because it's not good for others to see her, but she always stayed where she could see me. It felt like I was under constant surveillance, which was not pleasant, but I had no choice. My mother continued with her rehab. but there was no sign of improvement in her condition. Consequently, I had no prospects for returning to the main office, which troubled me. Prioritizing my mother's care, I spent these years without engaging in any romantic relationships, and now it's been 10 years. Currently, my mother is 65, and her dependency on me has worsened. Whenever I have to leave the house even for a bit, she becomes very upset, causing a lot of trouble. Calming her down takes so much time that living alone again seemed impossible. One day, we went to the hospital for her routine checkup. The doctor who always sees my mom is a male physician in his 40s named Dr. Walter Green. He has been treating her for 10 years. My mother went into the examination room to be checked. Right away, I stepped outside to take a call from a work colleague. After finishing the call and as I was heading back to the examination room, a female doctor approached me in the hallway.
Excuse me, but you are related to Sarah, right?
Yes, Sarah is my mother. Is something wrong with her? I was taken aback, being suddenly approached by an unknown doctor.
Sorry for the delay. I'm Kate Hudson. I'm Sarah's attending physician, and I work directly under Walter Green, the doctor in charge here at the hospital. Actually, I have something to discuss regarding Sarah. If you have the time, I'd like to talk to you about it, if that's okay.
Feeling anxious, I immediately agreed to spare time with her. Dr. Hudson then led me with a serious expression to a separate room, which seemed to be used as a small conference or consultation room.
Please, have a seat,
Dr. Hudson instructed, so I sat down. She began to speak with a serious look on her face.
I understand that you have been caring for your mother, Sarah, at your family home.
Yes, that's correct. For about the last 10 years, I've been working from home and taking care of my mother. Then, Dr. Hudson looked down and murmured in a low voice.
This is a bit hard for me to say, but...
What she disclosed next was shocking. Though I doubted my ears, Dr. Hudson led me to a certain room. What I saw there was a shocking scene. Dr. Hudson and I returned to the original room and sat down again. She then started speaking with a grave expression.
You should distance yourself from Sarah right away.
Hearing the doctor's words, anger towards my mother welled up inside me. That day, I showed my appreciation to her and left the hospital. Of course, I went straight home without stopping by my mother's place. As soon as I got home, I started preparing to leave. The image of my mother that I saw at the hospital kept flashing through my mind. About 3 hours had passed, and I was about to finish packing. During that time, my mother had called several times. Probably, she was anxious because the checkup or rehab was over, and I wasn't at the hospital. But I continued to ignore her calls. After I had finished packing, I finally answered my mother's call.
Emily, where are you now? Why aren't you answering the phone?
My mother shouted loudly as soon as the call connected. I'm at home, I replied calmly, not disturbed by her anger.
Why did you leave me behind? Don't you care about your parent?
My mother was clearly agitated. I sighed softly before expressing my feelings. I can't live with you anymore, Mom. That's why I've decided to leave this house. My statement made her eyes widen in shock. She seemed pretty taken aback.
What are you saying all of a sudden? Do you hate me now? If you leave, I won't be able to manage on my own. What am I supposed to do when I get back from the hospital? I need care, you know.
I confidently told my mother something. Mom, the truth is, your legs healed a long time ago, and you can walk normally, right? I know that you don't need a wheelchair or any care. At my words, my mother raised her voice.
How did you know that? Who told you?
I told my mother about what Dr. Hudson had shared with me and what I had seen at the hospital. Dr. Hudson said that recent tests showed no abnormalities in my mother's body, and it was puzzling why she couldn't walk. After some thought, Dr. Hudson concluded that it might be my mother's own belief. It seems there are cases where believing I can't walk makes it a reality. In that case, she would need mental care and my help, Dr. Hudson explained. Then she said, "Come with me," and led me to the door of the examination room where my mother was. She opened the door slightly and said, "Please look at this." To my astonishment, my mother was sitting in a chair without any problem in the examination room. The wheelchair was set aside, and her cane was lying nearby. Right after saying, "Thank you, Dr. Green," as always, my mother stood up from the chair on her own. Without using the cane, she got up from the chair, put on her jacket, and prepared to leave. My mother, who usually gets a plaster at the hospital, walked on her own to throw away the trash from the plaster application. Seeing my mother's light footsteps, I was speechless. She seemed completely unaware that I was watching. Afterwards, Dr. Hudson and I moved away a bit so as not to be noticed by my mother. Then my mother nonchalantly came out of the room in her wheelchair, and she headed toward the adjacent rehab facility. Dr. Hudson approached me and asked,
"Emily, are you okay?"
I stood there dazed for a moment before realizing my mother wasn't actually unable to walk, nor did she believe she couldn't. She could walk but was pretending she couldn't, demanding care from me. Amid my swirling emotions of anger and frustration, Dr. Hudson put her hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Stay strong." Following Dr. Hudson's advice, I quickly packed to leave my family home. While I was recounting the events at the hospital, my mother listened silently. But after a few minutes, she started telling the truth.
The car accident did happen, and I wasn't lying. I was injured badly enough to need welfare. However, after about a year and a half of intensive rehab, I could walk with a cane. I'm sorry for keeping silent.
Hearing this, I felt a surge of anger from deep within. What were those 10 years I spent caring for you all about? You could walk with a cane after about a year and a half. Don't joke with me. Then, over the phone, my mother responded,
You would have left if you knew, right? You seemed busy with work, and I hated that.
I knew my mother loved me as her daughter from our daily life. But her love became excessive, making me care for her so I wouldn't leave her side.
I worry about you, Emily, and I felt lonely on my own.
My mother said that, but over these 10 years, time had passed. Some of my colleagues have been promoted and are earning good salaries. Others are married and have built happy families. I had to give up on my career and marriage to care for my mother, only to realize much of that time was wasted. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became, and eventually, I started crying. I told her I had no intention of caring for her any longer. I'm leaving our family home today. Don't contact me ever again. Got it? I said firmly, hung up the phone, and blocked my mother's number. Months later, I was at a hospital. As I was about to go home after a checkup, a man hurried towards me.
It's been a while?
On closer inspection, it was Dr. Green, my mother's former physician. But he looked much thinner than before, and his face was marked by exhaustion. Dr. Green had known about my mother's recovery and had been paid by her to falsely diagnose her as disabled. He had taken cash from my mother that day too. However, recently Dr. Hudson spoke about this matter at a meeting, and it was exposed to the whole hospital, leading to his dismissal. It was also discovered that he had forged diagnosis reports. He mentioned he might be arrested soon. It seems like he's already facing the decision of having his medical license revoked. Yet, he insisted to me I did nothing wrong.
The money I received wasn't a bribe or a reward. That was hush money Sarah paid on your behalf. That's how I see it.
This was a grave mistake. Dr. Green was trying to shift the blame to me out of fear of being arrested. I raised my voice in opposition to Dr. Green's claims. What are you talking about? That's nonsense. Suddenly, Dr. Green's demeanor changed, and he confronted me aggressively.
You won't listen to me. I'll tell the police the same thing I told you. You know what will happen if you make any unnecessary moves, right?
Dr. Green was threatening me. I could feel my heartbeat quickening. It was clear that Dr. Green's story lacked evidence, but there was no proof that I wasn't involved either. Then an older man came over and stood in front of me protectively. At that moment, Dr. Green's face turned pale, and he exclaimed,
"The hospital CEO, why are you here?"
I was also surprised to realize the man standing before me was the hospital CEO.
"What are you doing to my daughter, Dr. Green?"
"Your daughter?"
Dr. Green exclaimed loudly. At the same time, I was in disbelief and looked at the man. The man before me was the hospital CEO and, as it turned out, my father. The father I had heard about from my mother. The father my mother had divorced when I was young was the CEO of this hospital. However, even in front of the hospital CEO, Dr. Green continues to spout nonsense.
"I was only writing the diagnosis reports because this woman threatened me. As a father, don't you think it's important to help your daughter make positive choices and avoid getting her becoming a criminal? I need your help."
Dr. Green begged my father for help, but it had no effect on my father.
"Ridiculous. You two have made enemies of both the hospital and the authorities. You've been deceiving my daughter, who cared for 10 years. You conspired to receive disability benefits. You fraud, deserve to be punished."
Dr. Green collapsed to his knees. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder from behind. Turning around, I saw my mother standing there with a menacing expression. Of course, she's not sitting in a wheelchair or using a cane. She's standing energetically.
What are you two doing?
My mother glared at me and my father as she spoke.
I followed Dr. Green because he was looking for you. I thought it would lead me to Emily, but it seems I've walked into quite the scene.
I was chilled by my mother's persistence.
I won't hand Emily over to someone like you. Emily, let's go.
She yelled at my father with a sense of madness. "Mom, stop it," I said, shaking off her hand and revealing my true feelings. "I know everything now. All the stories I heard from you were lies." My mother looked down, silenced. She had been feeding me lies since the divorce to prevent me from meeting my father. All the tales of my father treating her like a maid and leaving due to an affair were completely fabricated. My father, a dedicated doctor, had always worked tirelessly. My mother must have known this when she married him, but she changed after I was born. She decided on her own that he was a failure as a father, and she abruptly took me and left the house. So it was not my father but my mother who left. After the negotiations, my mother gained custody because my father, despite having a good income, didn't have time for childcare. However, my father had been sending me a lot of child support money. I was surprised to learn about this when I talked to my father for the first time about it. He wanted to meet me many times, but my mother kept refusing, saying, "Emily doesn't want to see you." I was able to attend college without financial difficulties thanks to the child support from my father. Not because my mother worked late to earn my tuition as she claimed. In reality, she worked part-time during the day and spent her nights out drinking in the entertainment district. Suddenly, my mother sharply asked, "Do you have proof?"
"Can't you just check the bank statements or ask the places you work?"
Then she looked down and started to cry. "I can no longer live with you, Mom. In fact, I can't. I'm sorry, but I have to sever ties with you now. Goodbye."
Wait a minute, Emily, Emily.
My mother called out my name loudly, but it no longer mattered. Having declared my disownment, I left the hospital with my father. Afterward, Dr. Green was arrested and stripped of his medical license. He had repeatedly forged diagnosis reports, resulting in a prison sentence. My mother, having paid the doctor for false reports and submitting fraudulent documents to receive disability benefits, was ordered to repay all the received benefits plus interest. Furthermore, she was charged with participating in fraud. I hope she truly acknowledges and atones for her crimes. This ordeal caused me so much stress that I ended up mentally exhausted and had to seek hospital treatment. Now I am working at the main office and managing my job while continuing my hospital visits. I later visited Dr. Hudson, who had enlightened me about my mother, to express my gratitude. Though my father and I had a miraculous reunion, we began to communicate regularly, slowly restoring our genuine parent-child relationship. One day after work, I unexpectedly met my father, and we decided to dine out. Sitting in the restaurant, he spoke.
We can reclaim lost time, but there's plenty ahead of us. From now on, Emily, live life the way you want.
His words resonated deeply with me. I vowed to cherish the time ahead and live true to myself.